Authority Board of Directors to order here Wednesday, February 5th, 7 p.m. First item on the agenda is the open session minutes of January 15th, 2020. We had a full board that night. Any errors, omissions, questions, concerns? Seeing here none, do we have a motion? Motion to accept. Motion to accept. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? That's unanimous. Next on the agenda is we have a FY19 financial statements and exit interview with Lynch Marine Associates Incorporated. They did the audit for the SRA. I'll start first with Eric, if you have any opening information statements, and I'll turn it over to them from there.
I just thought I'd introduce Rob Lynch and Grady Connor. They've been before you once, and this is their second time coming through to do our audit, and take it over.
And just before you guys start, we'll start, once they get done with their presentation, then we can go to board questions, and if the public has any questions, we'll go to the public. So turn it over to you, gentlemen.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Eric. I'm Rob Lynch with Lynch Marine Associates, and this is Grady Connor. We're partners with Lynch Marine Associates. Grady did manage the audit on a day-to-day basis as we were conducting that for fiscal year 19, and as Eric mentioned, we also audited the fiscal year 18 and did a presentation as well to the board for that. And the audit report was issued and reviewed with management in December, and I understand copies have been sent out. So we prepared, as we did last year, kind of a nice overview of the audit process and the results of the audit. So the purpose of our financial statement audit is to conduct an audit of the financial statements in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles and to express opinions on the financial statements. We issue an independent auditor's report on the financial statements and the various independent opinion units of the authority. And the audit's conducted in accordance with government auditing standards, commonly referred to as the Yellow Book. And we issue a report in connection with the Yellow Book on internal control over financial reporting compliance and other matters. Management's responsibilities in the audit process include preparation of the financial statements in accordance with the standards set forth by the Government Accounting Standards Board. We assist in preparing the financial statements, but ultimately the responsibility rests with the authority. Management is also responsible for the design and implementation of internal controls to ensure that errors and irregularities will be caught within the financial statements. Our responsibility is to express opinions on the financial statements based on our audit. We perform procedures to obtain audit evidence about the amounts and disclosures in the financial statements in order to express our opinions. We report on deficiencies in financial reporting and internal controls, whether material, significant, or other matters deemed to be important for the governing body. We use professional judgment to determine if financial statements are fairly stated in material respects or misleading to the users of the financial statements. Financial statements themselves consist of two sets of financial statements: the government-wide statements, which are on a full accrual basis of accounting, and that reports all assets, obligations, deferred outflows, and inflows of the authority. The fund basis statements are a modified accrual basis of accounting, and those report the major and non-major in the aggregate funds of the authority. The governmental funds, as mentioned, are a modified accrual, and the proprietary and fiduciary funds are full accrual reporting. In fiscal year 19, an OPEB trust fund was approved and set up by the authority, which set aside $304,000 in the OPEB trust fund. So that is funding the OPEB liability of $343,000 at approximately 88.5%. So you're in very good shape in terms of funding your OPEB liability. The authority has 6 opinion units. Our opinions were unmodified on 3 of the opinion units, on the business type activities, the reserve fund, and the other aggregate remaining funded fees. We've qualified opinions on 3 opinion units, and that's except for items. So except for the items that would qualify the other items in the financial statements. We did have an opinion on, a modified opinion on. But the qualified opinions are on the government activities, the general fund, and the parkway maintenance fund in connection with the contingent liability with the Commonwealth, the accounts receivable for the developer, former developer, and the landowner association. The GAAP requires reporting contingent liabilities, adequate allowance for collectability of receivables. In our yellow book report, we did note certain material weaknesses in internal control over the financial reporting. One was related to segregation of duties, and that's the obvious, just related to the small size of the entity. The calculations and monitoring in accordance with Parkway Finance Agreement and accounts receivable collectability of the accounts receivable that were recorded on the financial statements. And then as well as other matters related to the timing and submission of the audit report that's required within 120 days. But that's an overview, and open up to questions.
Okay. Kevin, I'll start with you.
I just have two questions. On the OPEB responsibilities, could you just highlight again, you said we were at 88% or whatever?
Yes, the total OPEB liability, which is determined through an actuarial evaluation, and that did change this year. Before, as allowed under the GASB rules, you were doing an alternative calculation. You did have an actuarial evaluation done. It was calculated to be a $343,000 liability.
Mm-hmm.
And in your OPEB trust fund, you have $304,000, so that's the 88%.
Okay, in terms of the segregation of duties, would it, in your opinion, based on the current levels of staff, and from a financing standpoint of having, you know, a check and a balance, do you have any recommendations in terms of going for the future to have a check and a balance within the staff itself?
You do want to have, it's going to be tough given the size of it, but you do want to put the checks and balances in place. And my understanding is, since we did have our meeting on the audit, there have been a couple of things put into place in that Jim is going to be opening all the mail and doing a separate recording of all cash receipts, deposits, checks that come in, to segregate that from Eric doing that, who's maintaining the ledger. So that will help, as well as I believe he was going to have one of the board members coming in to look and review the cash reconciliations.
Is that acceptable from your standpoint, and I'm thinking more in terms of the state auditor's standpoint too?
I mean, it's certainly going to help. I can't speak for the state auditor, but we'll have to kind of see how the process works, and we'll evaluate that.
Okay.
But certainly it steps in the right direction.
Very good, thank you.
Before I get to Brittany, I think on that, Kevin, I think maybe we can circle back at some point between Eric and if we come up with a plan, we can talk maybe again with you and we'll talk with Kevin and then come back to the board, obviously, and talk about how we're gonna put those controls in place formally, and we'd love your input if you'd be willing to do.
Sure, yeah, we're available for that. And we're always available throughout the year, and we get questions from Eric as well as all of our clients.
Great, thank you.
And
Brittany?
Tom,
Yep.
I have actually already implemented those two things, and we've already started with those.
Okay,
It was what I thought was the best that I could get done, considering it is only myself as a staff or financial staff. And between now and the next audit, I'd like to get into it a little more detail, see if there's anything else that the state, now that they have our audit as well, if they have any recommendations on top of that, and then integrate that into it also, considering our staff level, and then bring that before the board and say, listen, can we solidify these as a policy?
great, thank you, Eric.
Could I just chime in, just building on what we're talking about here? I think it's such an opportunity that there's a lot of incoming mail that I think it would be valuable for the board, not just the chair and the vice chair, to be informed of. I think I'd ask you to look at what comes in as something that maybe should go to some sort of maybe a shared website that we could look at and know what's coming in. I mean, is everything being scanned as it comes in and then being held in the cloud, or just something else to think about? Examples, any comments that come in on the RFPs, comments coming in that we're not all hearing everything, and that's a concern I have as a board member that I just ask you to look at, and also ask your input on it, in an efficient way that a complaint from an abutting town about something or other that it would be valuable for us all to hear about, because as we go through our town, we hear, do you know about this? And we're like, I don't know about that.
Okay.
Could I ask then also then if any of you board members have recommendations on anything that's related to controls, could you please get them off me right away? And I'll try and take all of that into consideration when we come up with like an overall plan and then bring it back before the board.
Sure.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Brittany?
Yeah, I mean, I think my questions have been answered because I was mainly focused on the segregation of duties as well. But I also, you know, I think the point made here about us not being able to do the audited financials in the time limit that has been set for us is also important to note, and obviously it's been addressed and we'll hopefully address that moving forward, but it's something that we should be keeping in mind as we're continuing.
Not to beat a dead horse, because you're gonna go over this, but this is my question too. So cash reconciliation was the thing that was mentioned here as some sort of attempted internal control. Are there other obvious things that are missing from oversight beyond, because that only goes so far, cash, you know, that's good, it's not great. Would you typically expect an authority of this size to have more oversight than that?
Well, you know, you're kind of morphing into different things from where you've been to where you are now,
Yeah.
to where you're gonna be going, and I think as time goes on and you continue to grow, you're gonna have to continue to address those. It's a never-ending process even to remain the same, no matter what size entity you are, you have to continue to evaluate those internal controls. But certainly some additional oversight of just reviewing the financial statements as a whole, not just focused on the cash issue,
Okay,
of having some additional oversight on that.
okay, and that's where you're gonna circle back to.
We'll work with Eric. I think he's already thinking some of that already, so, you know, let's certainly come up with a plan, get it back to the board and get it in place. Perfect. Brittany, additional?
No,
Okay. Gil?
The segregation of duties is really what I was looking at as well. Just a question for Eric, have we heard back from any input from the state when we've turned in the audited
I've
statements?
spoken to them, and they
Yeah.
said thank you very much, and we'll take a look at it, and if we have any comments, we'll get back to you. And
But
it's
we've
been,
gotten nothing.
it's been a matter of a couple weeks. As soon as I knew that we were gonna be postponing this meeting, I did get the financials off to them. I was gonna wait for you to look at it first, but when I knew we had to delay the meeting, I said, you know, I know that that's one of their hot buttons. So I
Right.
got it off to them, and it's been a couple weeks now, I haven't heard nothing.
Okay. Thank you.
Just a question to go off of Kevin's piece is the OPEB, you know, you say it's good in comparison to other governmental agencies, we are doing better than most. And
Yeah.
I'm sure you see it with, you service a lot of communities in Massachusetts.
Correct, yeah, and from a, you know, size standpoint, you're much smaller, but certainly from a percentage wise, not any of our clients have a percentage like that.
That's
There's
good.
a reason why also I wanted to address the OPEB item, and that's why we had included that as one of our line items. And that is because of the fact that, you know, we're one of those entities that's meant to basically deconstruct at some point in time. Our success is based on the fact that we end this thing, pretty much. So you never would want to end this thing with a burden of an OPEB obligation that would have to be passed back to the towns. So that's why I had mentioned it when we first put that in line. It's extremely important for us to make sure that that's funded by whatever developer is here during the time, to make sure that, you know, when they walk away, that has been fully funded through this process of them developing the property here through their revenues as well.
Great, that's great, thank you.
Yep.
Pat, no question?
Yeah, I agree with Eric's point with an eye to going out of business, that you have it highly funded, but that also kind of is an opportunity where we are highly funded. Maybe it gives us a chance, if we can't quite hit that number in a future year, we still have a good, also based on staffing level, that's a spot we might be able to tap. I have no questions, or
No, David and Brittany did a good job on the questions I was gonna ask.
It asked and answered.
Chris, sometimes I feel bad, but we're gonna next time, we'll start. Yeah, we're gonna start going the other way. I'm not gonna tell anybody what's gonna do it, they're gonna know. Chris is gonna be like, what? Okay, questions, just staff, any additional input, before I get to the audience? All we have, then we can let them go and move on to our next subjects. Audience, just name and address, as you know, Steve.
Yes, Steve Lamont, 16 Thistle Lane. I just had a few questions, maybe out of ignorance, because I haven't read anything.
Okay.
But I was just curious whether or not, you guys had, reviewed the past state audits that were done?
Yes.
You did, you used
Yes.
that, okay, so you saw that, so you knew what, you know, and they're pretty similar, that one and the one before.
Yes.
Okay, and that helped, did it?
Yeah, it would help to give us a thought, but we read that, but we do our own
Sure.
work and procedures.
Sure, and, you know, we're changing as we're going ahead too, so we're gonna more for sure. Let's see here, I have, so I'm not sure when, you know, what is it, separation of, what is it?
Segregation of duties.
Yeah, duties, okay. So I'm just curious, do we need to increase our staff here? Be one question, I don't know if that was discussed further. Is there a need, for an executive director?
I mean, that's not really,
That's
that's
not
out
part
of
of
our
their
purview of
focus.
financial audit.
Okay.
We didn't do it.
Okay, that's okay, that's why I asked, okay, all right, so you guys compare us to other, you know, municipal entity government type things, and we're small, okay? By small, you mean in budget size, or do you mean in people, or, I mean, how do we compare to someplace like Fort Devens?
That, I don't know about Fort Devens, but
Okay.
that's not a client of ours.
No, I just,
I think, Steve, they have to look at each individuals, I know with experience of talking with them, and sorry to cut you off.
No, it's okay.
They have to look at it as in a silo of the SRA, and just, we're just talking, when we talk about, say, OPEB, is seeing what other communities, just on that individual subject, not as a whole, as a group. Just because OPEB is required by all communities, but I think we know the SRA is unique in so many different perspectives, even unique from what Devon's is, so they're not necessarily doing a comparison, one-for-one comparison on another agency that looks somewhat the same. So that's just what we, you know, and that's some of the conversations when I've tried to understand the audit and working with these guys.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's all I got.
Awesome, thanks, Steve. Any other questions from the audience? Seeing here none, do we need any motion to accept, or are we all set to accept the report? Okay. I appreciate the time you took to come out here and get us an update, answer some questions, and I think I know you put a lot of time in here early on, so again, thank you for that, and look forward, we'll circle back soon and talk further on this. Great, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks very much.
Next on the agenda is a public access easement agreement amendment for the Meadows at Southfield Highlands. Jim, I'll turn this over to you to explain this.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As part of previous project approvals here within Union Point, there were a few projects that actually had private alleyways included. And at the time of the project approvals, the board did require that a public access easement agreement be executed between the authority and the then property owner, and then it would flow to successors and interest to allow public access to those private alleyways, essentially. Over time, there has been some concern about cut-through traffic, particularly through those alleyways where they're narrower and could potentially create a public safety hazard for the immediate residents and pedestrians in the area. A few years ago, this board did approve an amendment to the easement agreement that was in place for the Cottages neighborhood. And we've since received a similar request from the Meadows neighborhood, which is located sort of at the corner of Parkview Street and Memorial Grove Avenue, west of Snowbird. There are actually 3 alleyways that are part of that particular neighborhood. So this is, this particular request is referred to currently as an exterior modification request. Anytime there's an exterior modification within the project from any owner or entity, there's a process whereby the local homeowners association has an approval process. Then the overall master landowners association has an approval process, followed by the Southfield Redevelopment Authority. So it's sort of a 3-tiered approval process. This particular request for signage at the entranceways to the alleys, basically stating that they're private drives and discouraging any, through traffic, is very similar to what's in place today at the cottages. The local homeowners association for the Meadows has approved this request, as well as the Master Landowners Association has approved this request. So it's before you this evening. The form of the actual amendment is identical to what was previously done for the cottages, and would be signed by both parties and notarized and put on record accordingly as well, should you approve.
Okay, one question, just maybe you'll answer, just, it would conform with us, it wouldn't require any site plan action, and it does conform with our sign standard that we have in place.
It does, and we have run this by the traffic engineer for the town of Weymouth as well, to make sure that the language would not be, confusing or, basically we try to keep it consistent as possible to the other project and elsewhere, for possible enforcement opportunities in the future.
Excellent, thank you. Board members, questions?
Yeah. Jim, the homeowner who's is directly adjacent to the signs, are they in favor of the signage right outside their home? Do you know, have you heard any feedback or anything from?
All I can speak to is the homeowners association has
Approved it,
approved it.
You haven't heard
I don't
anything
know if
different?
there's specific abutters. I don't know if there are any representatives of the homeowners association here this evening that wanna speak to it.
Yeah, I don't. I'm
Sure,
not-
just need your name and
Oh,
address.
sure, I'm
for
sorry.
the record.
Eric Fanos, 17 Thistle Lane.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, so, I'm not sure if there are any abutters,
Okay.
because it's sort of a self-contained square around.
It's sort of on the back corner.
I see
It
one
almost
by the
looks like public
garage.
property, yeah.
There's four
One's by
sign locations. There's
mailboxes
four-
as well.
Okay.
There's four
There's
sign
corners
locations,
and that.
look
And I-
like,
and I believe the
Back
proposal
corner
is to
stop
use
sign.
existing signposts, so it wouldn't create any additional posts.
perfect.
My only question is how do you enforce this?
We hope that it has an effect.
Cameras and guns.
Hey.
Steve.
And I
That was from the audience.
Yes, that was not from the board.
Moral suasion.
You could talk to the cottages, I mean, the cottages have since said that it has cut
I
down.
think it
Their
has,
signage has cut down on the usage of their area, so.
So the tourists keep out.
That's good feedback, thank you, Brittany. Yeah, good.
It's the perception of enforcement, not
Yes, sir.
enforcement itself.
Steve,
Look at me.
Other questions of the board? Good. Seeing here none, do we have a motion?
Yeah, motion. Do I have to read it?
Yes, please.
That the Board of Directors execute the amendment to the public access easement agreement between IBG Highlands LLC and the South Shore Tri-Town Development Corporation as presented.
A motion, do we have a second? Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed, that's unanimous, thank you on that, and Jim will get that signed.
thank you, I have two originals that I'll circulate to the board.
Okay, great, thank you.
And we'll provide a notary as well.
Okay, great, thank you. Next on the agenda is the special permit granting authority. This is a request for a minor plan change for approval of a joint site plan special permit for the recreation area complex. This is going to be for the New England Free Jacks venue. The New England Free Jacks are going to do a short presentation here on this. It has been deemed as a modification, does require a notice of public hearing. It is looking for temporary access. And what we'll do is, like always, go through the board, and then from there, staff, and then to people in the public. Same thing with people in the public, name and address for the record, and we'll go from there. Please, again, hold all your questions till the group from the Free Jacks present, and I'll turn it over to you guys if you could do an introduction of each of you, and go from there.
Thank you, Chair. Can everybody hear us if we're right here? Does this work? I'm Alex Magleby. I'm the CEO and co-founder of the New England Free Jacks. Appreciate your time tonight. Thanks for listening to us and hearing about our sport and what we're all about. Just a bit about me, my background. I'm probably one of the few people in the 1990s who grew up and had a chance to play youth and high school rugby. I grew up in Utah. We had a great rugby program. I played football, basketball, skied, and we all played rugby. 4 guys from my high school rugby team went to the NFL, so they were real athletes. It was a great sport, and that was my introduction to the sport. And I came back east for school. I played at Dartmouth College, and while I was at university, I got selected to play for the U.S. national team. And this is right when the game started to go professional, so I was pretty fortunate. When I graduated, I was not only playing for the national team, I was able to sign an overseas contract. So I got to travel the world and play rugby. I came back to the United States, took over as head coach of my alma mater, Dartmouth College, and started a sports analytics company around performance management. And did that for about a decade and a half. I then coached the national team for a couple of years, and then moved on from that to develop our Olympic programs as a general manager as rugby came back into the Olympics at 2016 in Rio for both our women's and men's teams. When I left in 2018, we were just hitting our second in the world for both our men and women's programs. During that time, we've seen a massive growth in participation in the game of rugby, and it's really, really fun to be a part of that. And now I'm the CEO of a burgeoning professional team here in London.
So hi, I'm Owen Scannell. I'm the Director of Operations for the team. I oversee all of the business and operations focus, particularly around game day. My background, I was a former rugby player at Dartmouth College underneath Alex. Worked in finance in New York City for a number of years. Went back to get my MBA from the Tuck School, and now am with the Free Jacks full time.
And hi everybody, I'm Catherine Henry. I run medical for the Free Jacks. My background, I've been doing this for about 15 years in a variety of settings, including which I'm a member of the medical staff for the U.S. Women's 15s program, and that's how I met Alex. And about a little over a year ago, he gave me a call and jumped in head first.
Thank you for your introduction.
So we're really excited about our partnership with Union Sports Complex, and we want to be really good neighbors and really good partners with the local community and the town. Our basic values that we have in our club, the individual is really important, but like our sport, the team is more important than the individual, and how we've written it is the community is more important than our team, and that's how we go about all our priority decision making. And so we're really looking forward to being really good partners to this community as we help grow it. What are the Free Jacks and what is Major League Rugby? Well, we're going to be playing 16 matches this spring, 7 of which are going to be on national TV through CBS, Fox Sports 2, and ESPN News. 9 will be on Nessun. We have 11 different countries represented on the team. They're real athletes. They're World Cup they played in World Cups. They're Ranfurly Shield winners. People from Japan, New Zealand, all over Europe. A lot of domestic players. Kids who grew up actually playing this first wave of players who played in youth, high school, and college in Massachusetts. Now professional. So it's a real deal. It's a world-class thing. As important to that, just as we're going, will you just go back to that one, Catherine, just real quick? Just kind of some of the basic things that we just want to make sure we get across. A lot of the partnerships that we've started to create are with local businesses here, whether that's scaffolding to restaurant partners to all other parts of how we run this, and it's just that piece is a really important part of our community element as we grow. And we have 2,000 to 3,000 people coming to our games, and they're coming from all over the state and all over New England. They get to be a part of this community. They get to buy their gas here, buy food here, and have a great couple of hours with the Free Jacks. Thank you, Catherine. So just a bit about Major League Rugby. We started 2 years ago. It's very much based on the Major League Soccer model. We have currently heading into the 2020 season, which kicks off Sunday. We'll be playing in Las Vegas against New York. There are 12 teams, 6 on the East Coast, 6 on the West Coast. CBS is our prime carrier for the championship, and CBS Sports Network and FS2, ESPN News do a lot of the others. It is growing at about 116% per year, the league is. So it's a high growth rate sport, not only at the professional level, but we're seeing the same thing at the participation level for rugby. Thanks, Catherine. And this is a really important piece to me. I've been part of this game, fortunately, almost my whole life, and certainly my whole adult life. And it's a game that represents so much of the goodness, I think, of humanity on and off the field. Yes, on the field, it's a physical game, but it's not a collision game like American football. There's rules about how you make the tackle, how you engage in the contact. Everything's a contest. It's a very fair game. You pull up your socks, you tuck in your shirt, it's yes ma'am, yes sir to the referee. It's that type of game. When someone scores, it's because 14 other people have done their job, so they score and everybody appreciates that. When the opposition does something good in our sport, typically the home crowd still cheers for that thing because they did something good in the sport. We could be at a game together and wearing different jerseys, and we're probably going to buy each other a beer, and that's just the nature of our sport. After the game, the players have a meal together, right? So it is the greatest of sports, but then when you cross the line, it's back to building better communities, and that's really, really a huge part of our game, on and off the field, and what we're really looking forward to doing here. We talked about participation, but it continues to skyrocket. It's a game where everybody gets to make decisions. Everybody gets to run up and down the field holding the ball. Everybody gets to be a quarterback. Everybody gets to decide if they're going to pass or kick. And then whatever that decision is that they made, everybody else has to commit and be a part of that decision. So it's a really, really cool sport for girls and boys to play. And certainly as you grow up, there's non-contact versions of the sport, there's contact versions of the sport. Just an enormously empowering sport. And that's why we're seeing a lot of growth in the United States right now. Just keep going. You know, we are professional rugby. Our franchise represents the 6 states, but this is our home. This is where we train every day at the sports complex, and this is where our home matches are. What is a free jack? That's a question we get all the time. In many ways, it's playing into kind of the values of what we believe in. And this is the Fist Revolution of the Light of Hope. You know, Paul Revere's ride, but let's do right, and let's bring this sport to help make better communities, and that's really what we're driving at. A lot of our players, when they're not actually full-time players with us, we have them out in the community as community coaches. So we're really trying to grow the game. We're about to finish a partnership with the Boys and Girls Club. So a lot of things like that we're really excited about to share our game. And that is tied up in our brand. Our academy program we're about to announce, first and foremost, is to increase participation, increase opportunities to play the sport, and then build up a pyramid to create future Olympians if they want to go that path, or just have another path to go to college. The game now is, on the women's side, has become an NCAA emerging sport. So you're starting to see a lot of universities transition from what was a club model 20 years ago to a varsity model. And we're seeing a lot of success with athletes coming through that, getting a great education on the field and in the classroom because of that. And that just our foundation is what is going to help us remove those barriers as we grow this. So as we started this whole thing, it was not just about creating a good sports entertainment product for us, very much so. It's about increasing the opportunities for people to access what we think is the world's greatest game. Schedule, do you want to go over the schedule?
Yeah. So I'll talk a little bit through our kind of proposed schedule this upcoming spring, as well as what a game day will look like, as well as the site plan. But essentially, if you go to the next one, Catherine. We are hosting 7 games at the sports complex as part of a 16-game schedule. We have one neutral site venue this weekend, neutral home game in Las Vegas. But the 7 home games that we're playing here, which will all be covered on Nested and Nested Plus, are all, I think the important pieces to kind of take away from this are the dates and times. Every game will be on a Saturday, and then the times are mostly at 4 p.m. with a couple of noon starts. The latest a game will start is at 7:30 p.m. The nice thing about rugby is that it's a very, unlike baseball, it's a 2-hour sport. It's a 40-minute first half, a 10-minute halftime, and a 40-minute second half, which means there's a hard stop and when we know when events will end. So the latest any single one of these matches will end would be at 9:30 p.m., with most of them concluding about around 6 p.m.
Please note the April 18th match has just been moved to noon because that's gone from Ness and regional to national on ESPN. So, sorry.
Last year we hosted an exhibition season across a couple different venues with, I think, 6 games at Union Point. That's a picture of just what we had set up last year. I don't know if anybody here was able to kind of see any of the matches, but we had a phenomenal experience here, and that was part of the reason why we wanted to come back to Union Point. We thought it was a great place for our fans. We loved what the opportunity of this space presented. This is our site plan for what we're planning next year. We're putting up 1,700 seats through a company called Mars Scaffolding. They're a local South Shore company. They're going to be putting those up within the coming weeks, as well as some hospitality. And then there will be some parking on site, as well as areas for medical, multiple entry points, multiple exit points, areas for concessions, some tenting, but it'll all be permitted and approved by the town of Weymouth. Yeah, we're going to continue on to the next one. One key piece we wanted to bring up, the sports complex independently, but concurrently with us, is in the process of potentially acquiring a modular building on site to replace their existing offices, which we'd also be able to leverage as a locker room type facility. There's a potential to connect two utilities, but it'll be placed next to the restrooms on site, just in the event that it needs to be more portable. And we will finalize kind of an optimal placement as to where that would go relative to the rest of the site plan. This is our parking plan, so we want to make sure that we're obviously keeping, when we're bringing in 2,000 to 3,000 people a game, they're out of the way, they're in a place where they're supposed to be. And so our parking plan is this: we would have a lot where we're finalizing liability or some cross indemnification with Endeavor, who owns this lot. We would have a small lot there for tailgate parking, and then we would have ADA parking, and then a general parking area where we're actually in discussion with Washington Capital, currently finalizing a final plan for 800 spaces in this lot. And there's a sidewalk that would connect that area, which would be off of the roads. Some of the key points we wanted to make sure we got across is that all of the structures going up on site are going to be temporary. Everything that goes up for the Free Jacks is going to come down, whether it's May 30th when we play our last regular season game, or in an ideal scenario when we host a Major League Rugby championship game on June 22nd. But that would be the kind of the maximum it would be, and then by the time July rolls around, all the structures on site will be taken down. With the only exception potentially being the modular building, which would be with the sports complex separately. We have parking and security staff. We're working with a firm called T-Mops. They do Harvard, they do Gillette Stadium and the Patriots, the New England Revolution. Very professional, and they've done this for crowds of 80,000 people, right? They do that on a regular basis. They understand how to manage crowds, how to manage flow, how to keep people where they need to be, and so they've been very helpful. The time the venue is in use, our first home game will be March 14th, and the last home game would be May 30th. So there's a 2.5 month window where these games will be going on, with the potential for at most 2 home playoff games in June. And that is an ideal scenario where everything has gone very well, so it is in all likelihood probably a 7-game home series. But even during that time period, all of those games will be on Saturdays, and from a kind of I think a relatively reasonable time frame where they shouldn't be too disruptive or at inconvenient times. Like I mentioned before, the duration of the matches, it's very defined. I'm not going to get a 5-hour event that when it starts, there's a 2-hour time frame until it ends, right? So there's not a 9:30, 10:30, 11:30. It's 9:30, and then people leave. We've worked with had a couple of meetings with the town of Weymouth, with the police, fire, EMS from South Shore, the health board, the buildings, the mayor's office, and we've developed a emergency action plan. We've iterated through it where we've gone through a whole host of scenarios, looking at potential threats, weather, all of these things are being worked through with state and local authorities. And then we'll have staffing and adequate signage on site to make sure that the event the flow makes sense, it's as undisruptive as possible, and that it's self-contained and well organized. And then Catherine will just take us quickly through kind of what emergency type stuff we have on site.
So we've developed a full emergency action plan, working with police and fire in Weymouth, to help kind of design the details of it. Police and fire will have command centers on site and ready to handle any such a situation that may come up. We will have 2 ambulances on site, one ALS with paramedics, one BLS with EMTs, so that to support not only the match, but any crowds or if anything happens to anyone spectating or watching what we're doing. We also have a mobile roving AED, so defibrillator, that is pretty much glued to me and goes everywhere that the team goes and the players go, so to prevent any situations from there. We also are staffed by 2 physicians at every match, with our lead team physician, Dr. Suzanne Miller of Boston Sport and Shoulder, who is formerly has spent a lot of time with the Celtics and other professional sports, and then we'll have rotating second physician around their schedules. And then we also have full trauma kit on the sidelines, ready to go, in addition to 2 fully stocked ambulances.
And then I talked a little about Team Alpha, but we're working with them. You can go to the next one, I think. We have part of our EAP is an org chart. We have clear lines of communication between Weymouth Fire, Police, EMS, and then our match day manager, Patrick Mead, who then reports to me, and we can make all those decisions. If in the event of inclement weather, in the event of any sort of hostile intruder, we have a clear decision-making framework that allows us to respond to any sort of emergency in a way that's been vetted by the town and by the police. So just there is a structure, and we will be we obviously make the decisions in the best interest of safety yeah. Some of our vendors, like I mentioned, Mar Scaffolding. These are all local partners that we've been working with. Mar will be doing our seating on one of the east sideline. Peak Event Services is another local firm. They'll be doing some of our hospitality section, and then the Paddy Wagon, it would be our beverage partner. They'll be doing all of our alcohol delivery on site. They're well versed in state laws. All of their servers are tip certified. They have a clear set of policies and procedures, and they'll be very very on top of making sure that nobody gets overserved, and making sure all IDs are verified, etc. And we also have a pyrotechnics provider, just to present that to the board as well. Ocean State has actually been on the site a number of times. They've done a lot of the films, I think, including was it Patriots Day by the hangar. They have a great relationship with the town of Weymouth, with Captain Still. They'll be doing basically an entry for our players, something with like fire, maybe some things that they shoot up in the air. But that's kind of the one thing, and that would be probably 15 minutes to, or probably 5 minutes preceding any sort of kickoff. So the latest that would ever happen would be 7:25 p.m. But even then, it would be kind of that one isolated time frame, and we can, but it would be one iteration of that per game. And then as far as the parking, just to kind of give an update, it's an ongoing process. We have two separate parties that we're working with on just finalizing parking. Endeavor, Union Point, the sports complex has been working with Endeavor just to finalize some of the cross-identification language, but that should be, we're using the complex, that will be finalized soon. And then we've also been discussing with Washington Capital about that area that we've mentioned before, the space, the 800 spaces, down towards, I believe it's the Bell Hunt Parkway, where we place most of the other cars. We will be striping and staffing that, and so that, and also providing lighting for the one game at night. Yeah. Great. So yeah, that's our presentation. We'll open to the board for any questions.
Yeah, I'm gonna start with Kevin.
Very intrigued.
Next time.
I like the presentation.
No, you watch it.
The only question I have is, based on the dates that you indicated, is there any practice days, or is that just, the days?
Those are the match days. So that'll be when, so for practices, we've been practicing there since the beginning of January, in the bubbles. But with that, there's no real crowd draw. We had 2 scrimmages, but with no infrastructure, so a couple hundred people, but nothing really more than that.
Very good, thank you.
I'm gonna change it up. Chris?
Oh. A few things. I started listing just to, check them off, so I had something to talk about. Tailgating. Post and pre-game, what is the experience of tailgaters? If we go to football games and you're there from 3 hours before, 3 hours after, what's the experience?
Washington Capital's been very clear they do not want us having any tailgating parking on their facility. So we, we're 100% in agreement with that. What we're trying to do is create a designated zone where people can get a permit, or it's not a permit necessarily, but a pass. Allows them into a tailgating zone where they can set things up. We'll have bathrooms on site for them, and essentially try and make it a regular way tailgating thing and just be very limited.
And what do you envision the time frame for that, after game, before game? And this is more so for the residents, because
Yeah.
sounds carry
Yeah.
into the neighborhood, and the neighborhood is
Not
adjacent.
after, no, yeah,
Yeah.
it's not an after thing, yeah.
Yeah, before we would probably, I don't know if we would want to do, I think we'd probably open the tailgating lot for a noon kickoff, probably at 10 a.m., but then for a 4 p.m., we'd probably maybe do it at noon or 1-ish, yeah. And that would be kind of what we would, I think, expect from a timing perspective.
Just curious, I know it's new here, but attendance-wise, what are you seeing in the other places around the country?
So MLR is averaging about 3,000, 3,500, and that's probably pretty good for where we're at.
Right.
And that's a good wheelhouse for us as a business as we grow it slowly.
What's the average ticket prices?
For this,
Yeah.
season ticket right now is 140 for 7 games, so $20.
$20 a ticket.
Yeah.
Okay. And then finally, what's your contract period with Union Point Sports? Is this a one-year deal, or is this a?
It is to be discussed in June, set up basically.
So it's,
I wouldn't say it's a right of first refusal, but it's a carry through. There's a 30-day, if I remember correctly, time to make adjustments and decide
if this is going forward.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is really a pilot. So Union Point is really a pilot.
So last year, say we did a pilot last year. We tested Union Point, we tested Harvard, we tested Irish Culture Center in Canton. And after a really heavy assessment and investment in those 3 places to try them out as pilots,
Right.
this was the right choice.
And if this is successful, do you see permanent structures being discussed?
We want to grow. There's no question over time, right? And we would like to stay, from a business perspective, you want to build a fan base in one location.
Right.
You don't want to keep traveling everywhere. So
Right, you
yes.
don't want to pull down
Yeah,
stands and such, and permanent concessions and things along those lines.
exactly.
And one final question, because nobody else will get
Kind
any
of
in.
taking advantage
Um,
of it, yeah, right?
Yeah, well, on the way, Chris, thank you very much.
Crossing off my list.
Yeah.
From Union Point, the idea of Union Point was to be really an economic vehicle for the surrounding communities, and this is the best commercial venture that we've had in a long time, which is, thank you very much. What is the rub-off into the communities? Have you measured that, that monetarily, what you think rub-off can be, or?
I don't have a figure.
Yeah.
I haven't assessed the actual figure number today.
We'll know probably after the first few
Yeah,
days.
exactly.
That's one of the metrics that we would love to see back maybe next year when you come before us and say, hey, listen, we want to do this permanently.
Absolutely.
If you could bring those numbers back to us and say, this is what we contributed to, to the local communities, would be
Absolutely.
fantastic.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Appreciate that.
Chris?
Is that Kevin Donovan in the middle of that?
Actually, I was gonna say, I like when they say they support people of all shapes and sizes. I said, I've got a chance here.
Yeah,
Good job.
Yeah.
Have you considered offering a shuttle service from the commuter rail station?
Yes.
Okay.
We're
We're
considering,
actually talking with the commuter rail right now as well to see if we can do some subsidized tickets and promote people taking commuter rail and then helping them.
Oh, if you can get the T to do something, you hire.
Weekends, we like weekends, that $10 ticket is a great pitch.
Yeah.
Can you clarify for me the sidewalk, and is that to be finished, to have good access from your parking
The
lot?
parking sidewalk, yeah, the parking sidewalk, I've walked it, what it most needs is a mow.
There's a mow on the
Yeah,
side of it.
it's,
Okay.
there's a little bit of overgrowth on it, but it's walkable, right? And then once you get to, I believe about right here, then that's when the road, this becomes a fully pedestrian, or, this road is not gonna have any access. This would be kind of where all vehicles would come in. This would be exclusively pedestrian access. So this is, relatively good, but it does need to be, probably cleaned up from an
I just don't want someone to twist an ankle walking to a game.
Absolutely not.
So, you know, who
Yeah.
owns making sure
Well, that's
it's
why
in
we have
good
the
condition?
ambulance.
Yeah. I'm gonna give
That's
you
why I
no
have a job.
business. Yeah.
Your own digging holes.
So everyone's, it's an easy fix then?
Yeah.
Okay.
Dave?
Yeah, so speaking of that, you carry liability insurance obviously for, like, what does that cover exactly? Like if someone is walking from like Washington Capitol lot to how comprehensive is the liability insurance for this event, you know?
So I think we have a $10 million general liability umbrella that we share with the league.
Across all stadiums in the league, so it's a pretty comprehensive setup,
Okay.
because you're having to, there's some pretty sophisticated stadiums in the league now, so it's pretty comprehensive.
Okay.
We can get that.
Well, we might want to just have the attorney just look at, just to make sure that,
And our insurance agent.
yeah, just to make sure that
Just provide a copy.
the stuff that
Sure.
is covered that's game related isn't ultimately.
Well, you just wanna make somebody need additional.
Yeah, it doesn't, not a big deal, but we
Yeah.
should review
Right.
it.
Understand.
Make sure
Yeah,
we're
you just
fine.
wanna make sure you.
So, the only other thing was, are you any good? Are you gonna make the playoffs? Like,
The expectation of New England sports.
Just say yes.
Yeah, so yes, I think we're gonna make the playoffs, we got a good team.
nice.
But we're the only team in the league that has a local coach. Everybody else has hired a foreigner, and we're developing local. So the whole staff we're developing, and that's gonna take a bit of time. So it's part of our model.
Excellent. Actually, there were two other things. Trash is like a big deal around here. It's windy. Ask Heidi. And like controlling trash is just a big deal in this area because it blows around like crazy, and keep that in mind.
Yeah, we budgeted for a cleaning service to come and clean up after every match. I think we would get that through team ops as well. So that would be, we would
Okay,
make
perfect.
sure that there's enough
That's a
receptacles.
big deal. And the only other thing, and Tom, did you have a comment here? The locker room thing, is that temporary / permanent facility you were talking about? Is that a UP Sports thing, or is?
Yeah, so the UP Sports is going to be coming in for the next meeting, and I think we'll be discussing that, so we might be putting the cart a little bit before the horse, we have to review that. It just came to Jim, today, so I think it's not more them, it's more dealing with UP Sports,
So just FYI, for your planning purposes, sort of their issues would be somewhat different than your issues, and so as it relates to your venture, I don't have a problem with any of this, but that one little element, if it's part of a different plan for UP Sports, might view it very differently.
Yeah, it's not necessarily a piece that's fundamental to
Not a
our
deal
operation.
killer.
It was just like,
Okay.
this is everything that we see, so
Yep.
here's what we got.
Well, you're a professional sports team, you want professional lot, you need someplace to change.
Yeah.
Oh, and the last thing was drinking, so alcohol sales will be restricted to fans only,
Yes.
essentially, people who've purchased tickets.
Absolutely.
And those run from when to when relative to the game time?
The gate opens 90 minutes before,
Okay,
so the gate opens, and then pretty much 30 minutes after, whatever.
Okay.
Our window.
All right. Fair enough, that's it, I'm done.
Kelly.
Have you completed negotiations with Endeavor or in Washington Capitol for the parking piece, or are you close to completing?
Close.
Close.
So, the sports complex has been working with Endeavor, and then we've been dealing with Washington, Jen Sweeney from Washington Capitol directly.
I know, Jen.
Okay, great.
I have a lot of questions. So my first question is, do we know anything about like the amount of decibels or anything, the loudness that a game throws off, just like as an example, or, I don't expect an exact.
As a metric, no, but from for the, if you might get back a couple slides here. So all the speakers, we're bringing in temporary speakers,
Okay.
and they'll all be going this way. So the speakers will basically be going
Towards
into
the parkway.
woods. Yeah. So it'll be the material. I mean, last year when we were operating, we had the same speakers there last year. I was over here and you could barely hear the speakers, which was kind of a problem. We don't have a number, but we're relatively confident that we're not going to be creating too much of a noise disruption.
Okay.
Scares the hell out of the coyotes though.
I wouldn't think that would be a problem for you after your last comments.
Chasing them over.
Sorry.
No problem. To piggyback on the alcohol sales question, you had said it was coordinated with the sports complex, but my question is it just ticketed for your event, or is it anyone?
No,
so if the sports complex has a soccer game,
yeah,
can
that's a great question.
the mom go and get a
These
beer?
red lines here are meant to be the fences, right? So what we basically will do is work with a fence company, and they'll provide two types of fences. One will be the kind of the semi-permanent ones with the blocks that are all around the sports complex anyway. That will effectively restrict access to this entire area here, right? So basically what we'll do is we'll create two entry points there and there, that everyone past that point will either be part of the entertainment and staff or a ticketed attendee. And if there's a soccer game going on here, you can't come in here and say, hey, I want to go buy a beer. So you got to buy a ticket and then you can buy a beer, and you can't leave with that beer. So that would be what we would do.
So I gotta come to a match to come over.
That's really
all right.
Brenda, it's the only place you can get a drink in this place.
Or my house. The other question I had is there a plan to be coordination between events held at the sports complex and your events? So like obviously yours are planned, right? We have a date and we have a time. Hopefully the sports complex is not also doing.
Well, so part of our parking,
event?
the reason why our parking is so far away, or I mean relatively to a lot of the other parking, is that we're trying to leave as many spaces available as possible for the other events. So if there is a soccer tournament, if there is some sort of other youth lacrosse tournament, right? There should be there's Union Point is comfortable with the amount of spaces on the other side. I think it's the north side. I think it's up here, and then even kind of extending all the way around here, so that we're not trying to use those spaces and monopolize the parking, so that then there's this spillage. Like, there's enough space for all of those events to occur separately, independent of when we're playing.
Okay. My last, well, maybe not my last question. Another question is on the walk path that we had for the further parking. Part of that is a through road currently, correct, Jim? So like there's cars driving on this as well, and there is no sidewalk, so there will be people walking.
There is sidewalk. There is sidewalk.
Oh, there is.
Sidewalk.
Okay, it's just overgrown sidewalk.
It's overgrown. Yeah.
Okay.
Just be able to find that when you get out of the car and saw the sidewalk. So
got it. Okay.
There is a section, between Shea and the parking area that is actually utilized by the folks that are using the South Shore Hospital parking as well.
Yep.
So it'll be kind of a shared access point there, and that's kind of a wide open road. So that'll be certainly pay attention to where the pedestrians are, cutting through there.
Right.
Because there's no active sidewalk in that spot.
Okay. And just to also piggyback on the trash, my plea to you is to put trash collectors on that walk too, just because I know human nature and people are going to walk with their bottle of Coke and want to throw it. And that is sort of not a very populated area, so people do throw things out their windows all the time, and it bothers Heidi and bothers all of us. So anything we can do to help that.
They do. New York stickers on them that are the desire, so.
And then my last question is just for the residents, sort of, our safe mind kind of. Is there going to be any process to like get feedback from residents, and if trash is a problem, is there a real time, or if it's 10 o'clock on whatever date that really late game is, and I can still hear people from my house, like is there going to be a line I can call to say, hey, something's going on, because currently there really isn't a
Oh,
good
it's
way
so
to
low.
get us.
What we can do, and
It's
I'm
not
gonna,
it's
I'm
not
working
actually
on a
a
condition.
That's where we go.
It's a really good.
I'm working on a condition on that. What we'll do is have them provide emergency contact information that we can
Okay.
share with the board. You
Okay.
know, and what we'll do is we'll figure out how that matrix works. It's not maybe through HOA presidents or something like that. We can talk
Yep.
about that internally, how that works best for you.
Okay, that's it
Thank you.
for me.
Kelly, you're done?
Yep.
I just have a few comments, and then I'm gonna have a few conditions as we talk this through, and it's nothing life-threatening, I don't think. It's everything we talked about, I just wanna make sure we ramp up. Again, I wanna thank this group coming in, they've been professional all the way along. I had the opportunity to meet with them, you know, with Jim, and talk, you know, just how we're going to come to them tonight, and what we would be required of the board to be able to have this process move forward. I'm excited to have this here, and hopefully it's for the long term. And I have to say, this team was well in front of, Kelly was in front of this with Weymouth EMS, fire, and police, and it's great. They have a great concept to think about not only natural issues, but, you know, thinking of a mass issue that happens out there, to be in front of those things. You can see they have the experience and the knowledge of dealing with this. They've been professional all the way along. They've listened to our concerns and our needs, and I thank them for being here. So other than that, any other comments from the staff on this?
We may want to be listed as additionally insured on your insurance policy, and make that a condition of having a current insurance policy in place at all times.
Okay.
Are you guys ready for snow and rain, if that happens?
Of course.
Before we get to the, we'll get to the group in a second. I just wanna go over a few things. We have a couple conditions, and I just wanna make sure before as we vote this. Obviously, it sounds like the facilities, where it is temporary, they will be removed by July 31st. We're gonna make that a requirement. And obviously, we can we'll see what happens through this year, and then assess how we're gonna deal with next year and the following year after that. You're working with an off-site parking plan, and we have to make sure you reach an agreement, and that the SRA is provided with a copy of those agreements between you and whoever, whether it be Endeavor or Washington Capital.
Yep.
Okay. And then, again, alcohol sales will be on premises, shall be limited to the Free Jacks game on days only. Alcohol sales on additional days must be approved by the SRA, so if you see that it's gonna change, then obviously we gotta approve it, and then obviously we understand you're going to the town of Weymouth. And the town of Weymouth's been good about making sure they got our input first, and then working on the permit. I know you work with them. I wanna expand on the alcohol, is the serving is restricted to, if you guys are okay with this, and before we solidify this, is 90 minutes, from what I heard, 90 minutes prior to the game, during the game match, and then 30 minutes afterwards. Is that going to fit into your?
That's perfect.
Okay, and then ask that there's no, put a condition that there's no tailgating allowed after or post-game, post-match.
Chair, just with that, we have a curtain raiser before the game. We could curtain raise like a high school game or something like that, so there's people coming to the game. Does that apply 90 minutes before the curtain raiser match, or 90 minutes before the Free Jacks game? Just so I'm clear.
What do you want?
What do you want?
Well, in an ideal world, when people come through the gate, they're able to have the same experience, right?
How about instead of 90 minutes prior to the game, we do upon opening the gate, during the game match, and then 30 minutes afterwards? How about that? 30 minutes after the last
Yeah.
match.
Hey, Tom, I do have a question about alcohol sales, based upon what you just said, Tom.
Okay.
Alcohol sales will shut off when? You said 30 minutes after?
Yeah.
Shouldn't it be prior to, is there a seventh inning rule, basically?
No, so this is, this quick question was asked, and just to communicate it, they do host some of the hospitality sponsors after the game, and so, they have a hospitality tent, so it's part of their alcohol license that they're talking with Weymouth on, and obviously it's got to do with having the tip certified servers, and it goes in concert with that, so it's not something we would impose.
Right. No, it's just that.
Yeah, I tried to research it, there's nothing formal out there that says when it's starts and ends, it comes down to, you know, what the provider.
You just hate for somebody walking out the gate, pounding down another beer and then getting in their car and driving.
Can I, just on what you were indicating, if in the unlikely event that they need to change a date because of weather or whatever, should maybe we make this a condition that we give you the authority to approve any ancillary dates as long as they don't interfere, rather than try and crunch time to get a board together, you know, if it's, we have a hurricane or something of that nature.
So, okay, so we'll make that a condition as far as, due to weather, inclement weather or.
You give the chairman the authority.
So there's no altering the schedule without the
Approval of the
approval
chair.
of the chair.
Correct.
And obviously, it will be taken into consideration, whether it's weather or some unknown reason, so perfect. The SRA has provided a liability policy, and the SRA is added to the policy, and that, what you could do is you could follow back up with Eric and our insurance agent, and we can just make sure, however, we have to add that. If it becomes a major hurdle, then about adding us, but the biggest thing is having a copy of that, would be the
It's
important part.
typically easy to get the additional insurance.
Yeah, right, okay. Okay, the SRA has provided a parking agreement, which again, I heard that was on earlier, I apologize, again, that's a big piece, just so we know that you're under agreement on that. The sidewalk area from the parking area to the sports complex is maintained by the Free Jacks during the season, so any of that overgrowth you guys will take care of. Make sure it's maintained, shoveled, any of that's maintained by you guys, on that. If you have trash pickup, if you're gonna have dumpsters, I know the sports complex has theirs, but again, with yours, any dumpsters, that they're after 8 AM and before 6 PM, we have the continuous issue of sometimes dumpster companies coming in here at 5 AM, the residential area is close by, try to get in that practice of trying to limit that, so just let your dumpster company know. And then again, provide, the last one would be providing emergency information, get it to the board, and we'll work on a communication plan. We'll let you know maybe a list of people who could be reaching out to you if there was a problem, so you're not blindsided by somebody. Okay. Anything else? And Jim, I'll type these up and send those to you.
That's very good.
All right, and then we have the one last condition of the, again, we have the authorization of the chair to, if there's a schedule change necessary, to authorize the chair. Board have any other conditions, concerns? I'll turn it over to the residents, turn it over to the public if questions, start.
Mary Parsons, Union Street, Rockland. I have one that probably should be a condition, that your vendors not use any kind of glass bottles, whether they be juice or glass items, because they end up on the parkway broken. Because it's the Wild West.
They can't, they've told us that they can't take off-site. It's not, the stuff will not be allowed to be off-site. They will have security at the doors, and this might have not been communicated, but they'll have security at each entrance that wouldn't allow incoming or exit that would go with their alcohol license.
So they wouldn't be able to go back to their car with it in their hand?
No.
Okay. The other issue is, can you orient me on your parking? Is it, how far off-site? Is that field number 4 that you play in?
It's about
Yeah.
a fifth of a mile.
Field number 4, okay. This may be an old picture by view.
Yeah.
Because I'm not sure, that's not Redfield Road where you have that parking in Washington Capitol?
No, that's not Redfield Road.
No, that's Cummings Road.
It's what road?
Cummings Road. On the opposite side is the old fire station, and it's Cummings Road on both sides of Shea Memorial Drive there.
So it's on the opposite side of the existing fire station?
It's currently accessed for the South Shore Hospital parking lot.
So it's a South Shore Hospital parking lot, and you're gonna park in there?
It's just
behind
it's just
it.
behind it. So the South Shore lot, I believe, is right here, and so it'd be, it's right in this area, and then we would be behind that.
It's where the Volkswagens were, it started.
That's a distance.
You go through the gate.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that area is the gate.
And you're gonna have a shuttle for that? Because that's quite a distance from there.
The walking path we talked.
Yeah.
Have you ever walked through Gillette?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's- right.
Yeah, because there's Navy property in between.
Way shorter.
It would just be, it would.
Any other questions from the public?
Yes,
Name and address for the record, please.
absolutely. So my name is Lena, I'm a Christine, and I am a Snowbird resident. And as much as excited opportunity for you guys, I actually have kind of type of anxieties for those events because the previous experience showed that intent was good, but it was not executed the right way. And living in my own home, I didn't have a privacy for a couple of months. So I think what I'm just only asking is that while you're doing these wonderful events, we just keep in mind that the residential area is so close to the stadium, and maybe kind of treat it as the way like your mom lives next door. So if you can just keep it in mind that people actually live in here, and they're just, all they're asking is that to be private in their own home. So if that could be somehow a method to consider, so we would truly appreciate it.
Yeah, no, of
We'd
course.
like to, again, this sports complex is wonderful, and we like this opportunity. All I'm asking is that for a balance when we can have all of this, but at the same time, be respectful to residents who actually, after hard week working, you look forward for the weekend, and all you wanted is kind of a little bit relaxing private weekend, and then those big events happening, and you just kind of feel like you have to leave your house, go somewhere else, and create ants and come back. Again, so it's all about the balance in life. If you can just kind of keep it in mind that, again, resident people living here, so if you can find a way to keep the balance, it's very truly appreciated.
Understand.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you for that information.
I was just,
Just name it.
fan, 17th.
Thank you.
First time call.
You got me before, you got me before I got you, right?
What's the anticipated effect on traffic on Memorial Grove before and after the games?
I mean, what we'll try and do, I think, is hopefully stagger when people leave. We'll probably have the hospitality, or something we'll have to still work through, but we'll have parking staff that will hopefully try and angle, so that way we'll have, people that are parked here come this way, and then route some people the other way, so that way there's multiple ways of getting into and out of the facility. I think historically, with our season ticket sales to date, I think it's about, we'd say 85% of the ticket attendees would be going on Route 3 north as opposed to going south, so we would probably try and bifurcate them and split the traffic, so that way there'd be both ways to get to Route 3 instead of funneling everybody up Shinamore.
And Team Ops is gonna handle that, right?
Yeah.
And one thing we've impressed upon them as they came in with their plan and talking to the team ops group is, it's important to note is the parking on Memorial Grove that we've had with the issues in the past, that won't be tolerated. We will be contacting, and they're making sure they're working with the Weymouth Police and their team to make sure that they can limit that. Obviously, if people do it, you can only do so much sometimes, but if it gets to the point where they have to tow or deal with it, they will. And then, trying to keep the traffic out of the residential area as much as we can, and keep it heading down Memorial Grove or out to Route 3 through the Parkway, or through the Parkway up to Route 18 through Trotter. So we're trying to be as sensitive to the residents' piece as much as we can to avoid all that.
So I can't sell any of my space on my driveway.
The lemonade stand.
Hey, there's no condition in here, Steve, but after hearing your comments about your cameras and whatever else you have, I don't know if anybody's gonna park there anyway.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I'm gonna make a motion that the special permit granting authority approve the minor plan change to the joint site plan and special permit approval for the recreation complex project as presented with the following conditions as delineated and articulated by the chairman and given to the staff.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? That's a unanimous vote. Thank you so much.
Good
Will,
Good luck, very much. Good luck.
We wanna see a championship here, you know?
Yeah, we're working hard.
Jim, just one thing on this, I'll work with Jim with getting these conditions over to him tomorrow, because I know you want to try to expedite this to get in front of Weymouth for your alcohol permit. So we'll get this thing on the fast track by you, so thank you. All right.
Thank you.
so much.
Tom, do you want to get away of them blocking off, if they're going to be on the tarmac there or where the parking is, there's got to be a way to block it off so that they're not going to try to go when they go out, thinking that they can find an alternate route by going out and going up onto Union Street in Weymouth.
Okay. All right, I'll.
Sure you work.
Yeah, they'll get lost. They have people that come from out of state, because I've been to your games and I've photographed them. I sent them to Jerry.
Oh, great.
Perfect.
Excellent, thank you. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda is, we have treasurer's report.
I addressed everything.
There are no topics not reasonably anticipated by the chairman 48 hours in advance of the meeting. Any other public comment? I think I included everybody as each item came along. Is there any other public comment that needs to be had? Okay, so just next meeting, and I just worked this out with Attorney Galvin. Due to the executive session, it was put on the agenda, and a revised agenda. We're not gonna be going into executive session tonight, because it was under the 48 hours. We don't wanna create any issues. We're gonna plan the executive session for next Tuesday, if we can do 6 PM, if anybody has a conflict with that.
Yeah, Pat and I do. That's the 11th, isn't it?
Oh, okay.
We have, or before the economic committee.
What time is that at?
Is that 7?
Because Attorney Galvin has to be out of here by 7. We need about 20 minutes, and it is a pressing issue. Could we do 5:30? Is that tight for you?
I mean, I can make it work.
Well, let me ask you a question. Is the executive session just for the minutes?
No, it's not. It will not be. There's some potential litigation that I'm waiting on Attorney Galvin to get back to me on that.
I can do 5:30.
If we could do
Next Tuesday?
Next Tuesday,
What day is that?
the 11th.
11.
Yeah.
I'll circle back with the board and we'll post it depending on, I'll get back to you because I don't want to.
Yeah, we just can't.
Yeah, you got a lot to deal with on that the first time. So,
Well,
and
if
then,
you're going at 7?
Yeah.
Yeah, so if we can,
We have to be wrapped up by
I can make it
6:30.
work, I can make it work.
Yeah, so
I
if
just
we
never
do-
leave the office that early, so.
You are that good. But if we do 5:30, that gives us
well,
an
I'll
hour.
let you at
That's all you
5:30.
need.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll circle back with the board and get an email out, and when we post the agenda, I'll let you know for sure. Then next meeting will be actually the 19th. We have a public hearing posted. That's had to be posted. It is vacation week. If somebody, I just want to make sure we're going to have a quorum. If, circle back and let me know on that, and then we'll go from there. So that's where our next meeting. And again, the executive session is not going to be an item for tonight's agenda. We will not be going into executive session. So the next thing I have is adjournment.
Motion adjourned.
Motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That's unanimous. Thank you so much, everybody.